Welcome back to Mio on MMA Podcast. And I was trying some other audio recording programs and honestly didn't find anything better than Audacity. So it's still Audacity or OBS if you're checking out the YouTube version. Today we're going to talk about the fight card Derrick Lewis versus Jailton Almeida. Jailtown. Coming to you from Sao Paulo, right? Yeah, Sao Paulo, Brazil with the UFC. There's also a one card this weekend, Haggerty versus Andrade. Jonathan Haggerty is going to win that fight. There you go. I've also got Ty Rotolo winning. And then outside of Halil Amir being kind of interesting, there's not really much else on that card. So there you go. Check it out if you want, though. I keep saying it, checking out non-UFC cards is the key to combating bad fighter pay, essentially. Making profitable other promotions, sadly, is the best bet we have to cure some of the ills of the sport. But I'm not really going to break that card down. I do want to talk about heavyweights, though, as the title implicates. I haven't decided what the title is going to be, but there's going to be something in there. And it's two things. And there's also a third thing I'm going to talk about because it's been really, really big on Twitter today. Massive talking point on Twitter. Kind of weird. Don't really know why. But anyways, we got to talk about Francis Ngannou and his boxing match against Tyson Fury, which, yeah, let's get to the chase. I scored it for Fury. I thought he won. Ngannou did way better than I think anyone thought he was going to do. Outside of the Ngannou camp, I don't think anyone had Francis Ngannou competitive for 10 rounds with Tyson Fury. I think even if you were picking Ngannou to win, it was he's going to hit him with something really, really hard at some point in the fight. He's going to knock him out and puncher's chance, essentially. And that's not what we got. I mean, we did get that. He did knock Fury down. And I get why people are inclined that on the vibes he won. He did have the two best rounds of the fight, the round in which he knocked Fury down. And his 8th round was very, very, very good. But I did score 7 rounds for Fury. And I think there's at least 4 rounds of Fury won. And then there are 4 pick'em rounds between the two of them. That could go either way. So if you think Ngannou won, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But this does beg the question of where does he go from here? He's definitely won. He bet on himself in the UFC, against the UFC, basically. And he won. He went off to boxing, and he probably, based on any predicted payday off of this fight available, he made more money than did in his entire UFC career in this one boxing match, which is, of course, why I thought it was ridiculous that people actually thought this was a bad idea. Don't get me wrong. How I thought this was going to go is he was going to box Fury, he was going to lose, and then the door would kind of close for boxing. At least big payday was. And then he'd go to PFL and he'd make a bunch of money. And people would be like, well, he kind of ruined his legacy. Legacy without money and without respect, which Ngannou was getting neither from the UFC, not worth a hell of a lot. So very, very cool. Leaves him with a bunch of options to fight Wilder. That's what I would do. Personally, if I was in Ngannou's shoes and I was in the promoter's shoes, I'd be trying to put together Ngannou versus Wilder. That's the fight I would go with. But there's also thoughts of fighting Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz, even Usyk, maybe. I am not. And Zhang, the Chinese heavyweight. I am not as into those ideas because I just think Wilder is the biggest obvious option. And then there's maybe going back to MMA, but I wouldn't. There's not a lot of interest in seeing him actually fight in the PFL, unfortunately. And there are people well, this just makes him coming back to the UFC bigger. And, when trying to counter the idea that the UFC fumbled the bag here. Why would he go back to the UFC? The UFC, to be clear, the UFC will not pay him anywhere near what he's going to get for boxing. The UFC will not respect him any more than they did before because, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, baby. I treated you really, really badly, but come back and I won't treat you so terribly. Yeah, that doesn't work. That that doesn't work. So that's out the door. Do I think the UFC dropped the ball here? Not really. Obviously, they lost a chance to make a boatload of money on this fight as a co-promoter. They did lose that, but they're fine financially. And this continues. It's not like this is going to be something that, unless the antitrust lawsuit goes really, really badly for the UFC, this is not something that will be replicated in the future. Like, they're still going to retain basically their monopolistic power over the industry, unless the antitrust lawsuit goes against them. And if it goes against them, it's going to go against them anyways. I don't think like Francis Ngannou doing the boxing thing is what ended up, being the key to having that house of cards fall down. So I don't know. I don't feel like they lost out on a big payday. Yes, but they would have had to pay Francis more. They would have probably had to pay some of their other champions more when they came up for free agency. Now they don't. So it's not a win for the UFC, but it's not a loss for the UFC. They're in the same spot that they were before Ngannou fought Fury. And the other heavyweight thing I want to talk about real quick is the Stipe Miocic hate. What is up with that? Because to summarize, Miocic is supposed to fight John Jones. He's not now because Jones got hurt. Therefore, that's not the main event of UFC 295. Now it's Sergey Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall for the interim UFC heavyweight title. And people are just really, really angry that Stipe Miocic is holding the division up, which is bizarre. Because I guess they're like, fight or don't fight. Stop holding out for John Jones. One, the UFC is like stated, they didn't offer him the interim title fight. They don't want to do that. If he loses that, they lose the Jones fight, which they want to make money off of. They think it's going to draw big because it's a legacy fight. Which, by the way, anytime a fight is like sold off of like it being a legacy fight, is just an immediate sign that it's not a very good fight. Just saying. To be clear, like every fight is to a degree a legacy fight. From going all the way back to like, I don't know, Joe Stevenson beating Tyson Griffin. That's a legacy. Or not Joe Stevenson. Frankie Edgar beating Tyson Griffin. That's a legacy fight. Sure. But like, it's a fight that did things other than legacy. It's, what fight in history that is really, really, really good was entirely based on like, we are talking about legacy here. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But the UFC doesn't want to lose that fight. They didn't offer it. And here's the thing. People are like, well, he's holding up the division or he should just go away. Stipe is quite happy to go away. What do you want him to do? Turn down a big boatload of money from the UFC? Because he's pretty willing to just retire, move on with his life being a civil servant. Like, I understand not being a fan of Stipe because you cannot be a fan of whatever fighter you want. Like that is the nature of fandom. But like it's just weirdly toxic. And then the thing that's come up on Twitter today is the idea of like kids fighting. Someone posted like I think they were like 10 years old or something. It's like, here's some kids MMA and it's going to be the bright future of the sport, and kids going into this early is just going to lead to all of these good things that it's probably not going to, because we've seen very, very young people go into this. Like Jordan Meehan comes to mind. Rory McDonald comes to mind. These guys who started in their teens very, very early, and Meehan probably before that. Meehan probably like right as soon as he could walk. And then like you have Dagestan with like the, starting to wrestle at the very least exceptionally early. Like we have this, and they kind of just burn out. Like there's only so many years, it seems, that you can keep doing combat sports at any kind of a high, serious level before you physically, mentally, whatever it is, kind of check out. And if the clock starts running at the age of 10, there's a chance you might be done by 30. Like Rory McDonald is a great example of this. Rory McDonald was done by his mid-20s. He continued on for years afterwards. But in terms of being the person to get excited about, it kind of ended with the Lawler fights. It kind of broke him. And I don't think starting earlier fixes that. Also, here's the other thing. With the way MMA is, the pay, if your kid's an athlete, you tell them to do something else. Because something else has the options of education via the form of athletic scholarships. It has the ability to make more money as a professional than MMA. Almost any sport in the world pays more than MMA. That is the bold truth of the matter. And MMA is, well, other sports are certainly dangerous. I mean, American football comes to mind as obviously, head trauma, boxing, combat sports in general. But combat sports in general is, and MMA in particular, one of the most dangerous sports your kid can do. And we have seen with Sage Northcutt, particularly, we are to a degree seeing it with Raul Rosas Jr. These kids who start really, really, really early, they just end up with terribly bad habits because martial arts is a game of charlatans, largely. And also we end up with the fact that having your dad or your mom really invested in your career tends not to actually be a terribly positive thing. See Devin Clark, for example. It just leads to bad coaching, bad decisions, somewhat toxicity of personal relationships even. It just doesn't really work out. So I understand the baseline thinking that okay, you start earlier, you start learning earlier, your brain is more malleable, it's open to taking, we learned this. There's a reason why it's easier to learn things. The amount you learn from elementary school in terms of the ability to build on it is so much more than even by the time you hit college. But I think you're just going to see similar levels of burnout. You're just going to see people burn out quicker. And you're going to see people come in who have been learning MMA as a base discipline since 11 years old or whatever, and just have some terrible, terrible coaching ingrained into them that leads to just problems. So, and essentially what I'm saying here is the problem with the quality of MMA fighters is not how young they start. It's how you should do almost any other physical activity over MMA. That's what it is. Sorry, a bit of a hiccup there. Let's get into the card. This card is notable for having way too wide of betting lines on a number of fights. I'm looking at the co-main event for this. I'm looking at the main event to a certain degree for this. I'm looking at Ishmael Bonfim versus Vince Pichel for this. I'm looking at Is that the only one? Is that the only other one? Petrino versus Bukauskas. Oh, that is a little steep. That is a little steep. And there's a really weird underdog on the undercard. And Eduardo Mora, way too big of a favorite. But anyways, we'll talk about those fights as we get there. Jailton Almeida versus Derrick Lewis. This is not a complicated fight because essentially you've got a power striker versus a grappler. And Almeida is not a particularly good striker. He's a reasonably comfortable striker, but he's not really a particularly good one. And Lewis is not a particularly good one. He just hits really, 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 really hard. Almeida is not a particularly good wrestler. I know that's kind of weird. That's a hot take because he's taken everyone he's fought down so easily. But the standard of guys that he's been facing as wrestlers is pretty damn low. If you watch his shots, his technique, it's not actually all that great. It's fairly explosive because he's a fairly good athlete. He's fairly strong. His chain wrestling is actually pretty okay. It's heavyweight. Few people can actually just wrestle. He's got a very good top game. Taking the back, working ground and pound, working for submissions. Very deadly, very lethal, very dynamic. And that is not generally how you beat Derrick Lewis, but like it is how Sergey Spivak beat Derrick Lewis. Now, Spivak is bigger, he's more of a proper heavyweight, and I do honestly think he's a little bit better of a wrestler, but Almeida is a faster, more explosive athlete, and I think probably a better grappler, a more lethal grappler, anyways. And then you, of course, have Derrick Lewis, of course, having some issues with reckless driving in his Lamborghini, and obviously, as much as I suspect that it's not going to derail his training camp or anything, it does, cast a wild card of question over this fight. So at the end of the day, I do have to go Jailton Almeida to do his thing, to go out there, get the takedown, get the back control, get the submission, or, well, to be honest, it would have to be back control for the submission, because I don't know. I mean, I guess Spivak did arm triangle, if I recall correctly. If I'm not misremembering the method in which Derrick Lewis lost to Sergey Spivak, and I'm not, he did get arm triangle, which seems like it would be really, 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 really difficult to do to someone with the build of Derrick Lewis, but it was done. So I guess that is on the table as well. So yeah, I do have to go with Jailton Almeida, but I don't know. It's a dangerous fight. You can never count Derrick Lewis out. He is very, very strong. He's definitely stronger than anyone that Almeida has taken down before. But I do go with Almeida. Almeida is a minus 470 to minus 530 favorite. Lewis is plus 360 to plus 400. I think it's too wide. To be honest, I don't know if I'd ever put like Derrick Lewis down at like plus 400. Like it's just too much of there's too much of a potential puncher's chance there. Gabriel Bonfim versus Nicholas Dalby. It's an interesting. I like this matchup a lot. I like both the Bonfim's matchups on this card, actually. Gabriel Bonfim is very dynamic, both as a grappler and a striker. He's very, very dangerous. That being said, I do find his technique a little bit lacking. It's sort of one of those things that like, oh, that's cool, that's nice, that's really good. You hit him really hard there. You went for, a nice transition there, but like, a lot of the meat and potatoes, the fundamentals, the jab, the setting up combinations, the cohesive banded together, what is the word I'm looking for here? The interconnective skills, there we go, are not super amazing, but like he is a very good athlete. Nicholas Dalby is 38 years old, which is immediately a little bit of a concern, but he's never been finished. He's kind of the opposite. There's not a lot of dynamicism to him. He is the meat and potatoes. He is I'm going to come forward. I'm going to throw punches. I have surprisingly good cardio. I'm very durable. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make the fight exceptionally difficult for you every minute that I can. And that's admittedly something that we really haven't seen Bonfim actually have to deal with, like at a high level. We are talking about a guy in Nicholas Dalby who does not need to be a better athlete than you to beat you, because like Warley Alves, far better athlete than Dalby, beat him. Daniel Rodriguez, probably a better athlete than Nicholas Dalby, beat him. And that's a really, really solid question mark for Bonfim. Now, I'm going to pick Bonfim to win, but I'm not going to predict him to be the first guy to finish Nicholas Dalby. It might happen. He is very dangerous, like I said. I can't emphasize that enough. He's a very dangerous fighter. But I just think that there's a lot of wild card that leads to his finishes that I just don't think works on Dalby. And that's why I'm going to go with the decision. The betting odds are way too wide. Bonfim minus 549 to minus 650? Come on. You're kidding me. I want to bet on Dalby at plus plus 460 preferably. But plus 390 to plus 460. Heavyweights. Rodrigo Nascimento versus Dontel Mays. I want to believe in Dontel Mays. I really, really, really do. The dude, I think, actually has a really high ceiling. There's like a certain level of creativity to him. There's a physicality to him that is really cool. He's got dynamic ability. Like and he's very tough. He's incredibly tough. All of this should mean that he's actually a decent fighter. It's just that you remember how I was saying how fighters develop with poor coaching and bad habits? Dontel Mays, step on up, because the man has no good habits. None whatsoever. The fight IQ and the schooling, the coaching, not good. He does pathologically the wrong thing a lot of the time. He doesn't seem to ever really have a game plan. It just seems to be absolutely a mess. And Rodrigo Nascimento, who is not the athlete that Dontel Mays is, but he is a hard-nosed, power-striking grappler. And he knows what he wants to do. It's kind of one-dimensional, frankly. It's kind of one-directional anyways. It's just pressure. But I also don't really see why it wouldn't work, because it's worked before. Augusto Sakai did it. Augusto Sakai did it, and Hamdi Abdel Wahad did it. I don't really see why it wouldn't work. I mean, I know. They fought before, and Nascimento beat him. That's like also a big part of this, honestly. Like, they fought each other in 2020, and Nascimento won on UFC Fight Night Overeem versus Harris. Long time ago. And I think as much as I've been like, as much as if we went back in time and asked me then, it's like, hey, Dontel Mays is going to fight Nascimento again. What's going to happen? I would probably be like, well, I'm hoping that Mays is like advanced and become a better fighter, and that he wins the rematch. I don't actually think that's the case. So I'm going to go with Nascimento by decision instead of submission, but that's about it, really. Nascimento's minus 180 to 198. Mays is plus 145 to plus 165. I don't know. I'm just not super interested in the fight. Kyle Bahayo versus Abus Magomedov. Not interested in the fight. Abus Magomedov is the worst guy to ever headline an Apex card. He's got bad cardio. He's got decent dynamic power. He's got some grappling. It's probably actually the best bet of his game. He's got some ideas of what he wants to do as a striker, but like, it's not very good. He is a guy who is entirely hyped up because of his name. Oh, he's Magomedov. He must be good. He must be insanely good. Those Dagestanis are really, really good. I don't even think he's born in Dagestan. I know I know they got him listed from Germany. Where is? I should have looked this up. Where is he born? Oh, he is born in Dagestan. Okay, there you are. So what's the deal with him being from Germany? What's the dealio here? Did he leave? Oh, right. He doesn't have a Wikipedia page. I was going to check out the Wikipedia page, but he didn't have one. Yeah. I don't really see why Bahayo, after maybe like a little bit of roughness at the start, doesn't just start to grapple F him. Like, just get his takedowns, get his control, work his pretty good top game, get his back at some point and submit him. I don't really see how that doesn't happen. Now, to be clear, he is a dangerous puncher. He does start well. And Bahayo is pretty hittable. Pretty obscenely hittable. So I guess there's a little bit of nervousness there. But like, if Abus wins this fight, it's in like the first 2 minutes by like a big ham fist that hurts Bahayo and leads to a finish. I never like picking that. So, yeah, Bahayo by submission. He is only a minus 260 to 320 favorite, which, again, given the size of the favorite that Bonfim has and that Almeida has, like, I feel like this is actually even more of a predictable fight. And he is a closer odds guy there. But hey, Dagestani Love, plus 205 to plus 250 on Abus. Rodolfo Vieira versus Armin Petrosyan. Classic MMA matchup. The world-class grappler versus the kickboxer. And both these guys have made a lot of great efforts to try to be better at things, particularly Vieira, who's like learned to strike and be calm and confident after completely gassing out against Fluffy Hernandez and getting embarrassingly submitted. He's been making a lot of strides to becoming a better, calmer, less nerve-wracked, less gassing fighter, and going out there and applying like an overall MMA game as opposed to just being a world-class grappler. And Armin Petrosyan, for a guy who's a kickboxer, is not a particularly bad grappler. He is a guy who went to decision with, for example, Hobo Cop Rodriguez in a fight that I thought Rodriguez won. And a guy who, went 15 minutes with Kyle Bahayo in a loss. It's, it does feel like a guy who is, a little bit competent in grappling and whatever, but like Vieira is also far better at grappling than either of those guys. And getting Petrosyan down hasn't really been a problem. And he's not a huge hitter. Like, he's not some dynamic striking finisher. Like, he's a guy who went 15 minutes with Christian Leroy Duncan, who has incredible defensive flaws, and went 15 minutes with AJ Dobson, who also has incredible defensive flaws. Like, and never really significantly hurt either of them. So, like, I see Vieira getting takedowns, getting a dominant position at some point, and getting a submission. This is literally a pick'em fight. 105, minus 105 to minus 115 on both guys. So, closest fight on the card. And I get it. There's a dynamic here that Petrosyan could win with like good footwork, solid jab, make Vieira tired, and take over. But I don't think he has the physicality to stop Vieira from getting him down and getting the win. Ismael Bonfim versus Vince Pichel in another battle of Bonfim versus like tough, greedy veteran. And that is what Vince Pichel is. Like, the man is an incredibly tough, gritty veteran. Very meat and potatoes. Very basic boxing into wrestling, into scrambles. That's what he does. That's what he, he's... Sorry, I had a burp there. He is the guy who, for whatever reason, has been really, really inactive. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if it's lack of ability from fighter pay to actually train consistently and get ready for fights consistently. I don't know which it is. But he's a guy who's still here at 40. So, hey, that's cool. He is going to pressure Ismael Bonfim. He is going to try to grapple him. He's going to try and grind him. He's going to try and put the grit on him. And I don't really think that that's how you beat Bonfim. Like, Bonfim last time out looked pretty bad against Benoit Saint-Denis. And I still can't get through my head that Benoit Saint-Denis is, like, good. But everything that led to that is not really present here. Pichel is not a kicker, for one thing. And he's not particularly fast, particularly powerful, for another thing. So, realistically speaking, this is a fight that Bonfim should be able to handle. It's kind of interesting that I do kind of feel like he should be a 145er. Because I look at him, he's apparently 5'8", and it just 5'8" in general feels a little short for lightweight. This is a division where like guys are fairly routinely like 5'10", 5'11", 6 feet tall. And he's not super thickly built. But anyways, I am taking Bonfim by decision to, be a reasonably smooth boxer, unlike his brother. Like, he's kind of got what his brother needs, and his brother's got what he needs. His brother has that dynamic physicality and also fights at welterweight, which helps. So just a worse division than 155. And Ismael has the fundamentals, the quality boxing, the combination game, the composure. Bonfim is a minus 500 to minus 526 favorite. That is insane. Bet on Pichel at those odds. Plus 340 to plus 400 Pichel. Way too wide. Elvis Brenner versus Kyan Khrushchevsky, I think is how it's said. I'll be blunt here. I didn't think Brenner would be very good when he came in. He came in and fought Zubair Tukhugov. He ended up winning. That was mainly about Tukhugov being inactive. And then he went out there and he had a lot of good moments against Guram Kutaladze and then KO'd him. Although in the middle there, he was getting his butt kicked. He got carved up pretty hard. But they got him in here with Khrushchevsky, who is not very good. Like, I mean, he's not terrible. He's got a 6-foot frame at lightweight. He's pretty big, pretty strong. Has some reasonable jab work, but he can be very, very wild as a striker. Leaves a lot of openings to counter him, which Bonfim has a good counter game. And, his defensive wrestling is also pretty concerning. It's not great. He's a good scrambler, and he does get up, but he can just be kind of like ragdolled by someone with a physical presence, which I'm admittedly not 100% certain that Brenner is, but at the same time, if Brenner gets him down on a routine basis, he should be able to sub him, because Brenner does have a really good sub game, even though his striking is very, very wild and not amazing. But anyways, I am taking Brenner by submission. There's just too much wildness in Khrushchevsky for me to take. He is a minus 186 to minus 200 favorite. Khrushchevsky is plus 150 to plus 163. Elisa Zaleski versus Renat Fakhretdinov. I want to pick Zaleski. I can't. Zaleski is super fun, super action fighter. You look up action fighter in the dictionary, his picture is right there. He likes to do crazy stuff, but the problem is that leaves you open to being wrestled. And Fakhretdinov has really good wrestling. He's very one-dimensional. Don't get me wrong. It's bad striking and good wrestling and kinda not super exciting grappling. And that's what we're in for. Fakhretdinov going in there, getting takedowns, putting Zaleski on his back, grinding him out, taking a decision. That's my pick. Fakhretdinov minus 350 to minus 390. Zaleski plus 275 to plus 300. And then Daniel Marcos versus Victor Hugo. Daniel Marcos had I thought, loss against Davey Grant, honestly. And it was a disturbing fight because it was a fight where he didn't do much. Like, he's a guy who, he landed less significant strikes against Davey Grant in a decision than he did in his previous fight where he stopped the guy in the second round. That is concerning. It's bad. But I still think there's a very, I don't want to say bright future for this prospect, because he's, if I'm not mistaken, he's like 30. And I don't really like it when we use the term prospect on a guy who's 30. I just don't. But he's a guy who's learning and developing. And I'm thinking maybe that was his problem against Davey Grant, is that he was trying to work on some things that just weren't really ready. He's still a good pace striker with pretty reasonable wrestling and scrambling and really good low kicks. And Victor Hugo is kind of the same thing. A pace striker, a guy with very good low kicks, pretty decent chain wrestling. And he loves going for leg locks. Loves it. And I think that'll get him in trouble at some point. But he's very, very wild and keeps his hands very, very low, particularly when he throws kicks. It's incredibly counterable. Like, if Marcos is not countering him like 2-3 times around, I'm going to be very disappointed. I've got Marcos by decision. He's just more of a proven commodity. But to be honest, if Hugo wins, I'm not going to be stunned, because it does seem like Marcos is a guy who's trying to become better. And sometimes when you're getting better, you get worse. And that does feel like what happened with Davey Grant. But Hugo is not the fighter Davey Grant is. By the way, it's kind of weird that he beat Davey Grant and the UFC is giving him this matchup. It's very strange. This wasn't originally supposed to be Hugo. I know it was Willie Cat Santos, but even that felt like a really weird matchmaking. But anyways, Marcos is a minus 222 favorite to minus 250, and Hugo coming in at plus 185 to plus 200. That does feel about right. Vitor Petrino versus Modestas Bukauskas in 205 action. I like Petrino. I really do. I think there's a pretty high ceiling for him. He has a lot of physicality to him and a lot of confidence. This will be interesting, though, because I do think that defensively there's a lot of problems. Like a lot of problems to him, particularly as a striker. And like his inability to maintain top position when he actually gets takedowns is alarming. He's very, very shallow. Like he has multiple dimensions to him. He is well-rounded, but like it's very, very, very shallow all around. Bukauskas is less well-rounded because he kind of wanted to fight everyone the same way, which is he wants to use his 6'3", 78-inch frame to stay outside, work the sniping game, work some counters. There's a little bit of creativity there, but not like a ton. And the thing is, I just think Petrino will kind of walk through it, keep slamming into him, keep clinching with him, keep taking him down, keep just kind of blunt hammering into him. And there's a lack of horsepower to Bukauskas that always worries me. There's a lack of stopping options he's got. So I've got Petrino by decision. He's a minus 222 to minus 250 favorite. He is the exact same odds as Marcos has, actually. The exact same range. Bukauskas does not have the same. He's plus 176 to plus 200. So that's a little bit different. Angela Hill, Denise Gomez. Angela Hill, we know what we get with her. She is a good clinch grappler. She is not the greatest athlete in the world, not the fastest, not the most explosive, not the strongest, but she's very, very good. She's very, very game. She preps for her opponents very well. The only people who blow her out of the water are physical specimens or amazing people. Like, I'm not convinced Mackenzie Dern is like an amazing athlete, but like she's also big and strong and an incredibly good grappler. Gomes is a reasonably good Muay Thai fighter. She got a 20-second knockout against Yasmin Howergui last time out. She's the favorite here. Denise Gomes is the favorite. Go bet on Angela Hill. Go do it. Gomes is minus 125 to minus 137. Hill is plus 100 to plus 115. I'm taking Hill. Like you look at the fight, the common opponent they have, Luma Luke Boomy. Hill beat Luke Boomy at Luke Boomy's own game because of just the size discrepancies. Gomez couldn't do that. Could not do that. You're not going to do anything that Hill's not ready for. You're going to want to clinch with her. You're going to want to throw in the pocket with her. Hill's very, very good at both those things. He's going to outpace you. I don't know. I think I just feel like Gomes is getting a lot of hype off that Howergui knockout that I don't frankly endorse. Like it proves power. It gives her a puncher's chance that maybe I didn't believe beforehand. So like it enhances it, but I don't know. I'm just not digging it. Montserrat Caneo Ruiz versus Eduarda Mora. I'm picking Mora to win by decision. She is a runaway favorite at minus 526 to minus 649. Ruiz is a plus 390 to plus 450 underdog. Mora has looked very impressive on the regional scene, but it's against nobody. It's against nobody. Maybe she's great. Maybe she is. Maybe her dynamic, athletic BJJ game will translate, and she's gonna charge up the rankings, and like Jacqueline Amarin did recently beat Caneo Ruiz. But I don't agree. Don't get me wrong. Ruiz should lose this fight. She is very much a dirty boxer with a head and arm throw game, which means that she's going to give more of the clinch. She's going to give more of the chance to grapple with her. She's not going to exploit any of the theoretical weaknesses that Mora probably has, but she's not instant tappings. And she's proven herself as a UFC winner, even if it's pretty near the bottom of the barrel. But like, she has done that. I just don't think anyone who is essentially coming off the Dana White Contender Series, having fought no one, should be a minus 500 plus favorite. That is insane. And also, can we stop with the Ronda nicknames? We got Irina Alekseeva, I think, who's Russian Ronda. And we now have Eduarda Ronda Mora. Taking Mora by decision, but this is her first real taste. Like, I don't know. It's a bit of a runaway hype train. See, it happens to non-Dagestani fighters. There was someone else on this card that I was saying was like proof that I don't just get mad at the overhyped Dagestanis. But I don't remember who it is now. I legitimately don't remember who it is. But anyways, Cowie Fernandez versus I think it's Cowie versus Mark Diakese. Fernandez is a bit weird because he's listed as like 6 feet tall in some of his sites, but like 5'9" in others. It's very weird. I think it's closer to 6 feet. Just because if he is 5'9" and with that build, he should not be at 155. I'm just gonna say that right now. But he is your standard Brazilian action fighter. Very wild, very open to getting countered, very open to getting wrestled. Good scrambles. Not a great guard. Pretty bad guard, actually. But he gets back to guard pretty well. I guess that kind of makes up for it. But if DKC comes out and just wrestles him, he's going to win. I don't know if DKC is going to do that because, he didn't wrestle against Mike Johnson. But I'm assuming he just will. I'm assuming we're going to get NCAA Mark Diakese, where he applies his really physical, powerful wrestling style, his ability to just kind of ragdoll people, and he gets a decision because he doesn't finish people a lot. So Diakese by decision, but Fernandez, I don't know. He's a fun-looking action fighter. It's good to see some decent debuters on this card. It's pretty deep for a fight night, realistically speaking, but it is also very heavyweight and very middleweight heavy. And those are two divisions that tend to breed I don't want to say not good fights, but like they tend to breed kind of sloppy fights. So we'll see how it goes. Anyways, do me a solid. Check out the links down below, to the right, to the left, or above, wherever it is, wherever the description of this podcast / video are. Check it out. You'll find other places for the podcast. You will find my gaming channels, and you will find my Discord server where you can check out the MMA simulator that I run. And we're actually getting to the good stuff there. The career mode is starting to get to the point where like I have formed my fictional rival promotion for the UFC, and we'll see how that goes. So we got a heavyweight GP coming up. That'll be pretty cool, pretty fun. We'll see if someone can beat the Byron, and I will see you guys after the fights.